Welcome to Raising a Catholic Family Today. I'm Ron Fleitz, host of this program. With me, my co-host, John Bosio, author of the book, Raising a Catholic Family Today, Building a Domestic Church. John, as always, welcome back.
Thank you, Ron. It's my pleasure to be here today.
John, I want to start by reviewing what we explored in the previous episodes. In episode 1, we discussed how home needs to be a safe place for our children. In episode 2, we spoke about home being the place where God, who is love, resides with us. And then in episode 3, we heard from some families, and they shared with us how they teach their children to pray. So, John, what is the subject of today's episode?
Ron, the title of today's episode is Our Home is an Apprenticeship to Loving. Today we will hear how some families create daily routines in their home life through which they teach their children how to love.
That's an interesting subject, John. So where do we start?
Ron, we start with understanding what love is.
John, I agree. In fact, I like the definition of love that you give in your book. You write, "We may think of love as a feeling, but ultimately for love to be truly love, it needs to be expressed in words or actions that benefit another person." You also explain that St. Thomas Aquinas defined true love as doing what is best for another person.
Ron, thank you for reading the definition of love. But for me, what is even more important than knowing the definition of love is experiencing what true love is. So I want to ask you, Ron, and I'm asking our audience to recall a time in their life when someone did something for you that was truly an act of self-giving love. So, Ron, do you have a person or an event in mind?
I do. John, my wife, Valerie, she's just a peach. When I least expect it, she reaches out and does something for me. And she does everything for me as well as, for herself, without asking for anything, any thanks or anything else. She just does it. She'll see that I'm sitting over there and she'll bring me a glass of water, and that to me is an act of love. I didn't ask for it.
Ron, that is a wonderful example. Thank you for sharing it. I asked the similar question of the 12 families that I interviewed. Here is what some of them said.
Very predominant memory that comes to mind for someone that did something for me as an act of self-giving love. It was my 13th birthday, and my grandmother took me out and we did a big shopping spree. She said, "You're a teenager. Let's go. Let's have lunch. Let's get you a couple of new outfits." And she just really spoiled me that day. And it wasn't anything that anyone had ever done before. So it was really special.
When my mom would make me a dress, she was a fantastic seamstress and still is. And with 6 children, it was hard to carve out that time. And our family was a lot about food, and she would often ask, what's your favorite meal? But that served the whole family. But when she would make me a dress, it was hugely self-giving and sacrificial, and I felt that.
I wasn't 18 yet. I remember my grandfather gave me a really nice minivan to drive around because I didn't have a nice car and my parents were not rich.
When my sister and I were both young, we really liked to dance, and my parents made a lot of sacrifices, especially financially, for us to continue to be able to do tap and jazz and ballet, which we both really, really love.
My sister had run away when she was a teenager, and we had a rough family life, and she had every right and reason to run away and stay away. But she was so worried about us that she came home just to make sure that we were okay.
For me, my hero was my grandmother. When I was 5, and at the time I lived in Italy, I contracted scarlet fever. I was hospitalized and quarantined, and my grandmother put her life on hold to stay with me 24/7 for 1 month. That was truly an act of love.
I remember reading that in the book, John. It was very compelling.
Thank you.
John, earlier you told me that in this episode, we'll highlight certain rituals that, when repeated, will strengthen the love in our family. I'm interested in hearing about these 3 rituals.
Yes, of course. Let's talk about them. It seems to me that if we want to create in our home an environment of self-giving love, it is not enough to have acts of kindness toward one another. Acts of kindness are good, but for love to grow among family members, we need to develop certain habits, certain routines, through which we express our love for one another day after day. I call these love rituals. Love rituals are found in every family. They are words, gestures, and actions which are repeated regularly and through which family members stay connected and support one another. Here are some examples of family love rituals.
When I return home from work or the store, typically we have all girls right now. We have a boy on the way, but they run right up to me and want to tell me all the things that happened in their day, or tell me a knock joke.
We have a family meal every single night that we can. We eat dinner as a family every night.
I think a hug is probably the thing that lets me know that we're okay again after we have a hurtful disagreement.
So now I take care of laundry, I meal plan, and I cook the meals.
Ron, families have rituals for departing and returning home, for eating meals together, for mending relationships, for expressing appreciation, for helping one another, and many others. The love rituals of our family help build up in our homes a civilization of love that teaches our children what it means to love.
In your book, you write that there are 3 types of love rituals. What are they?
Ron, in my book, I identify 3 types of love rituals that are: first, love rituals that connect and create communion among family members. One example of this is the family meal. The second type is love rituals through which we help one another heal and give one another comfort. An example is saying, "I'm sorry," or giving a hug to mend a relationship. The third type of love rituals are those through which we serve one another. One example is going grocery shopping for the family.
John, let's talk about the first group of rituals, those that keep the family connected. Can you give us some examples?
Ron, an important ritual that takes place daily in every family is the ritual of disconnecting to go to work or to school or to the store, and the ritual of returning home to be reconnected with the family. Ron, do you have any of these rituals in your family? For example, what do you do when you leave home? Do you have a particular routine that you follow when you say goodbye and leave home?
Yeah, a big one for us is hugs. For many years, I traveled. I was out the door on Monday and back on Friday. And those hugs, my wife missed a lot because it was just 1 or 2 hugs a week at that point in time. And now we get hugs all the time. So it's amazing how important that hug is.
Yes, I feel the same way. I asked the families that I interviewed, what happens in your family when you return home from work or from the store? How are you greeted? What I learned is that reconnecting is always a very joyful experience. It is joyful in a special way when the children are young.
Spend a lot of time. I work in a hospital, and especially through my residency and training years when the boys were much younger. When I came in after a long day, or even a long 2 days that spent at the hospital on call, I'd come in the house and it was like a party, and the children would run at me and they'd hug me, and it was really wonderful. I was always greeted with such love when I came home. In fact, there'd be even I just need to go to the bathroom, right? I just want to have a moment in the bathroom. But there's children in the bathroom with me, and Fran is there talking to me, and
That's true. I confirm that. I was there.
There was always about family when I walked in the door.
I am parking the truck and come in the door, and they're all like, you can hear them yelling and running, from the oldest down to the baby.
When I go to the store and come home, they all rush to the groceries and want to put the groceries away.
So when we return home from work or the store, our kids run up to us, which we just soak it in because we know one day those little feet aren't going to be running toward the door.
So I don't know once they've become teenagers if they'll still be excited when we come home. But right now, it's wonderful. It's one of my very favorite things about coming back home is they'll just run up to us and give us big hugs. And
what I also learned is that the welcoming rituals learned in childhood remain as a habit, even as the children grow up, although they may not be as exuberant as in childhood.
And our schedules are very different. So there's some days that he comes in and I'm in the middle of dinner or the kids are in homework. So everyone's kind of sometimes in their own world, but we still try to come together and say hello or, just kind of even like a kiss on the cheek in passing or, that sort of thing.
My husband and son hop into the garage and help me carry in the bags, especially from the groceries. And that's really, really helpful. They're like, good.
Yeah, for a teenager to say, "Hey, Dad," that can make my day.
So I think it is important that we make our daily rituals of disconnecting and reconnecting with our family members moments during which we express our love for them.
Before we continue, let's remind everybody that you're listening to Raising a Catholic Family Today on Nashville Catholic Radio. And speaking of which, earlier, John, you mentioned that regular family meals are important.
Yes, Ron, family meals are very important in connecting members of the family and in building a civilization of love within the family. I asked parents several questions about the ritual of eating together. I asked them, how often do you have a family meal?
We have a family meal every night. We try to always have dinner together.
Usually, we make it a point to eat our meals around that dining room table, and we share and we laugh and we encourage them to eat their veggies, and they may not like it and they may not seem to appreciate it in the moment, but we just got a new dining room table, and when the girls found out about it, they were so upset because this is the table that we had our memories around.
Family meals have always been of incredible importance to us. I think when our children were younger, elementary school aged, middle school aged, it was very easy for us to have family meals.
As you heard, family meals are important to all families, and having daily, regular family meals are easier for families with younger children. As the children grow up, family meals are still important, but because of conflicting schedules, they may happen less often.
That our son's getting older, he'll miss a family meal every once in a while due to his first job. But we definitely have had family meals 95% of the time.
The children are getting older. We've got college students and high school students now. It's a little more challenging to make that happen, but I would say at least 3 or 4 days a week, we're probably still having family dinner all together, and that's a big part of our family lifestyle.
We try to have family meals as often as possible, which can be really difficult on weeknights when, we both work full time and our kids both are in the school, so it can be very difficult with activities. But I think making a family meal a priority is really, really important because it's a time when we can all sit down, all 4 of us can sit down together undistracted.
Another question I asked parents was, what happens during your family meals?
We're trying to work on table manners because they kind of just play and they're always trying to get up. And so that's our focus.
A little one running around eating her food. Sometimes we're shoveling it in her mouth. It's just what's happening right now. Sometimes all of us will be sitting at the table talking about our highest moment of the day or somewhere we saw Jesus today, or, we have those sometimes. We wish we could do it every night.
We spend a lot of family dinner, ask them about their day, what different activities, specials they attended that day. And, that's kind of where we get a pulse on how they're doing.
Yeah. And, full honesty, what happens during the meals, a lot of times they end up talking over each other, and it's kind of like you have to calm each of them down kind of corral the conversation. But yes, family mealtime, just extremely important to us.
What happens during it depends on how long we have. Sometimes it's everyone sitting around eating as fast as we can to move on to the next thing. But sometimes it's sitting down and having a nice conversation, and just
all four of us are able to talk about what happened in the day, talk about things that are coming up, later in the week, things that are bothering us, things that are exciting, make plans for, what movie are we going to see this weekend, or what are we going to do Friday night. So to me, there are a huge number of benefits to having meals as a family, since we spend so much of the day apart from one another.
John, I want to read from your book 3 quotes from experts on this subject. Nancy Gibbs writes that the family dinner table is where the tribe comes together to transmit wisdom. Robin Fox, an anthropologist, says that the family dinners engrave the souls. A meal is about civilizing children. And John Cudback, PhD, professor of philosophy at Christendom College, writes that at the table, we discover that we belong. Now, John, from what you write in your book, it's obvious that if we want to have a strong family, we need to create family rituals that keep us connected and growing together. Now let's talk about the second group of love ritual, those through which we help one another heal.
Ron, there are actually 2 types of healing rituals: rituals of forgiveness and rituals of compassion. Let's talk first about the rituals of forgiveness. Because we are human, it is easy to say or do something that damages our relationship. And so we need rituals of forgiveness that help us reconnect and heal after a spat. So I ask families, how do you make up after a hurtful disagreement? The message I heard from all couples is that healing relationships takes time, and some people heal faster than others.
He, like he said, he's the one who bounces back first. He'll come, and if I'm like in a different room because I'm still angry, he'll come and grab me by the hand, and we'll sit down on the couch, and just being in that presence, whether I'm still mad or not, it just pretty much diffuses,
But see, I don't really see him needing some time as a flaw. I think that's just how he's processing things. Just because I need to talk about it right away or can, doesn't mean that's right. Especially in those big conversations. Not everybody can discuss it right away. And you got to be okay and continue to live and love each other, those even if it's a couple days before you're ready to have a big conversation. Or even you don't have time because you have all these children and you don't have time to have a big conversation for some reason.
I know everyone says don't go to bed on your anger, but we make sure that we've given each other some space and some time. Because sometimes if you come together too quickly, you just either pretend everything was okay or you say additional hurtful things. And so once you've kind of calmed down and you're able to take a moment, then to come back and just apologize and recognize, typically it's not that just one person was right and one person was wrong. Typically it's that you just both weren't listening to each other at all.
We basically made an agreement early in our marriage that we would never sleep apart. And so when an argument occurs, when a hard conversation happens, somebody's feelings are hurt, and you're not feeling close to that person.
You don't feel the love.
You're not feeling the love. Our rule is we still get in the same bed, we hold hands, and we say our evening prayers together.
Just like always.
No matter how angry or upset or hurt we are, that's a rule.
And sometimes it's with a clenched jaw and you're squeezing another person's hand so tight. But that's the routine. That's what we depend on. And it's very much like our sacramental life in that we don't always feel it, but we do it. And we know that there's grace there. And we know that it's necessary for the life of our marriage and the life of our family. And I would say for our kids, when we have disagreements, we have taught them to apologize.
And so the common experience of these couples is that after a hurtful disagreement, one person may need more time to heal than the other. So it is important to give each other time and space. A group of healing rituals are those that require compassion when someone in the family is physically sick or emotionally stressed. I asked families that I interviewed, when you're physically sick or emotionally drained, what can family members do to help you heal?
I am physically drained. One of the things that I really could use is time to myself and a quiet space typically.
You know, I went through a time last year where I was dealing with some pretty severe depression and anxiety, and Courtney helped that in a big way by just stepping in and helping me fill some roles that I couldn't at the time because of my emotional mental health issues.
I think that one thing that we try to do personally is, or between us and our marriage, is to give each other grace and space, where if you need to go on a walk without anyone else around, go on the walk.
You know, I get a lot of neck pain, back pain, and I just want her to be massaged by Jackie or my little one, you know.
As you heard, some of the ways that we help one another heal is to give each other space, or even do some of the chores the sick person cannot do.
Now, John, there is one more group of love rituals, and it has to do with serving one another. What are these rituals?
Ron, these are actions through which family members keep the family functioning. Think of all the chores that need to be done in our home. These are necessary. Some of these are done by individuals alone, but they serve the whole family. For example, cooking, doing the dishes, paying the bills, mowing the lawn, and many others. So I ask families, what are some of the rituals of service that take place in your home?
Rituals of service and activities that we do, throughout the house. We have 5 kids, and so a lot of times there's a lot of divide and conquer that goes on. So sometimes that's the kids who help feed the dog, and they do some other things to help clean the house to earn rewards. But there are portions. Graham and I both work full time, and so there are portions like cooking and appointments that we typically share. I tend to love going to the grocery store, so that tends to be one of my things.
There's a lot of chores because we have a lot of animals and a lot of plants to take care of. So milking goats and feeding rabbits and moving sheep from one pasture to another. Same thing with the cows. Watering plants, harvesting, vacuuming, cooking. Oh, so many.
Yeah, I would say, we take seriously Paul's admonishment that if you don't work, you don't eat, in a sense that, from a young age, the kids are expected to chip in as much as they're able to. And
we team up and we do it together, and we rotate through them so nobody ever has to do all the cooking all the time.
Cleaning the kitchen is primary. I think at the end, after our children, it's kind of a rite of passage after they make their first Holy Communion. They start a kitchen night or 2 kitchen nights where it's only them. So I cook all the dinners and they clean the kitchen.
John, we're running short on time, so let me summarize what we discussed today. We learned that to teach our children how to love, we parents need to develop healthy routines of relating to one another, rituals that keep us connected, that help us heal, and through which we serve one another for the good of the family. In other words, we need to develop routines in our home that express our love for one another day after day. Here are some suggestions for the family. 1. Review how you say goodbye when you leave home and welcome one another when you return. 2. Review your routine for family meals. Are they daily and without interruptions? And 3. Review the way that you resolve your differences and heal your relationships. We want to close with words of appreciation to the 12 families that shared their experiences with us during this series. They are Sam and Courtney Bolton of St. Francis Cabrini, Chris and Rebecca Zarka of St. Anne, Jackie and Gustavo Gasca of St. Stephen, Ryan and Rebecca Hanning of St. Lawrence, Graham and Heather Honeycutt of St. Matthew, also of St. Matthew, Matt and Fran Yeager, Andrew and Joanna Janfro of Holy Rosary, Robin and Cindy Roberts of Mother Teresa, Chris and Audrey Russell of St. Stephen, also from St. Stephen, Brian and Stephanie Smith, Brian and Katie Stockwell of Holy Rosary, and Paul and Amy Welsh of St. Stephen. And I thank you for spending this time with us. Please join us for our next episode. Home is where we learn to live in God's time.